can see him. I can see my co-chair, Mr. Mukherjee. Very good morning to you, Shreya Saab. I can also see you there in the program.
Good morning.
I am awaiting. Yeah, I am awaiting for Shri Sandeep Agarwal. I can see. Yes, Mr. Rao has also joined. Very good morning to Hariranjan Rao Saab. He is also there in the program. Very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, we still have. I don't know. Hey, just check. Two more minutes, so we will start it sharp at 11. Mukherjee Saab, I can see you. I can see our mentor, Shri Sandeep Agarwal ji. Very good morning to you, Sandeep ji.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Good morning.
Now I am waiting for our president, Shri Sanjay Agarwal ji, because I got the confirmation through Rajesh. I can see my chairman also. First time my chairman, Telecom Committee, Gupta Saab, sir. Very good morning to you, sir.
Namaskar, Hariranjan ji. Namaskar.
And I can see
Namaskar,
my
Rajesh.
SG also, Shri Saurabh Sanyal ji. Very good morning to
Namaskar.
Yeah.
Sanjeev ji, namaskar. And Saurabh ji, Yogesh ji, greetings to everybody.
Namaskar, sir. Namaskar, Sandeep ji.
Namaskar, sir. Namaskar, everybody.
waiting for my president to join so that we can start this wonderful program. Ladies and gentlemen, today is the World Telecommunications and Information Society Day 2021. And the theme of this day, as let me also share it with you, SG, as I was sharing it with you in the morning. This information technology, telecommunication and information society day. I think the pioneer in PhD is Sandeep Agarwal ji only. He is the one who has always been encouraging, inspiring the telecom committee when he was the chairman of the railway committee also, to ensure that every year we are celebrating it along with the theme. So my warm welcome to our president also, Shri Sanjay Agarwal ji. He has joined.
Namaskar, sir. Good morning, President, sir.
Good
Morning, sir. President, with your kind permission, shall we start, sir?
Please.
Okay. Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to each one of you. Let me share it with you today that we are celebrating this World Telecommunications and Information Society Day 2021. And the theme, as I was mentioning, is accelerating digital transformation in challenging times. So this is the theme. I am very happy to share it with you that our chairman, Mr. Gupta from he is very inspiring and has always encouraged us. He is there with us today, Mr. Rajiv Gupta. He is the chairman of our Telecom Committee, PhD Chamber. Of course, Mr. Sandeep Agarwal, he is now the mentor of the Telecom Committee, PhD CCI, who has always been guiding us. And under his leadership only, we are celebrating this. And of course, my dear friend also, I would say, Mr. Mukherjee, he is the co-chair of our Telecom Committee. I hope, Mukherjee Saab, your throat is fantastic and you would be able to participate in this wonderful programs. Ladies and gentlemen, let me share it with you that today we are very happy to share it with you. We have special addresses from Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochar Saab. He is the Director General of Cellular Operators Association of India. Mr. Sanjeev Shreya, the founder of Smart Chip Private Limited, always been encouraging and coming in our program. We welcome Shreya Saab to you. Let me share it with you. Mr. Waghela could not join this time. Unfortunately, he is unwell. President, we just came to know through yesterday evening only that he could not join. Mr. Rao, we are very happy that he has joined today as the chief guest in this program. And let me share it with you. When he was posted in Madhya Pradesh, he has always been supporting PhD CCI, and he has always been guiding PhD CCI for doing the meaningful programs. So with this note, I will not take much of the time. I would request first, with the permission of my president, I would like to invite Mr. Sandeep Agarwal, the mentor of the Telecom Committee, to kindly give his brief welcome remarks. Over to you, Mr. Sandeep Agarwal.
Just a second. Just a second. Thank you very much. It is a pleasure today that we are meeting on this auspicious day of World Telecommunication and Information Society Day. We have been following this tradition for a very long time in PhD. We are celebrating this dissemination of information to the society through information technology. Today, we all understand that, sorry, I'm extremely sorry, I've totally skipped, welcoming our chief guest. So, first of all, thank you so much, Hariranjan Raoji, for joining us today and giving us the pleasure to know your views on how India will be able to increase its presence in the telecommunication network and dissemination of information. And Lieutenant General S.P. Kocherji, obviously he is the DG of Cellular Operator Association of India, and on that behalf, the most information is circulated and disseminated by your members, sir. So I really want to hear you on how we are going to improve upon our future by actually making India into a world-class 3G, 4G, and now 5G economy. Sir, Mr. Sanjeev Shreyaji, who is the founder of the Smart Chip, welcome, sir. And Sanjay Agarwalji, our chairman, president of PhD-CCI, Shri Rajiv Gupta ji, chairman of our telecom committee. अब राजीव जी को ही ये सब कुछ आगे लेके जाना है, तो इसलिए हम चाहते हैं कि, और वैसे भी आपकी जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है वो इस काम के अंदर बहुत आगे है, तो आप भी आगे रहें और ऑर्गेनाइजेशन भी आगे रहे, अच्छा है, वेरी गुड. And Alok Mukherjee, he is our co-chairman. Thank you very much. Saurabh Sanyal ji, Secretary General of PhD-CCI, Yogesh Srivastava ji. A warm welcome to everybody. We all know that telecommunication today is something which is indispensable. Dissemination of information can only happen through
voice is
okay,
bad.
earlier you started with a telephone, so we said okay, we started with telex, or what we said, so there a few lines or a few words used to come in, and that was considered a big leap. Then we had phone calls with each other also, and we were able to remotely discuss. But while we are looking into these webinars today, they have totally changed the scenario, how we met earlier and how we are meeting now. COVID has changed a lot many things, and today we are together able to meet, see, and share information seamlessly on the web. So we believe today that telecommunication is the backbone on which the economy of the country resides. With the IoT, Internet of Things, again, the things are going to be totally different. With Internet of Things, not only people will be connected through information technology, but it will be the machines themselves without the probably the interference or work of men or women into it. So therefore, today we are pretty sure that we are nearing a revolution, and shortly that revolution is going to get India a $1 trillion digital economy, and probably it will digital economy will become the biggest reason of growth in all future. So I will take rest on this, and I will really request our panelists to discuss and tell us more about this day and what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sandeep Agarwal ji, for your wonderful welcome remarks. As you have said that we will continue, with this celebration of this World Telecommunications Day every year. Thank you very much for giving the guidance and support always. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my proud privilege to invite our President, Shri Sanjay Agarwal ji, to kindly give his presidential address. Over to you, Sanjay ji. If you can kindly unmute yourself, President. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Yogesh. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to welcome today our chief guest, Shri Hari Ranjan Rao ji, Lieutenant General SP Kocher from COAI, Mr. Sanjeev Shriya of SmartChip, Mr. Sandeep Agarwal, the mentor of Telecom Committee, Mr. Rajiv Gupta, the chairman of Telecom Committee, and Mr. Alok Mukherjee, the co-chair of the Telecom Committee, our Secretary General of the Chamber, Mr. Saurabh Sanyal, and our Assistant Secretary General, Dr. Yogesh Srivastava. Good morning to all. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this interactive webinar that we are organizing today on the occasion of the World Telecommunication and Information Society Day 2021, with the theme Accelerating Transformation in Digital Times. On behalf of the PSD Chamber, I would like to welcome our chief guest, Sri Hari Ranjan Rao. It's really a privilege to have you share your views with us today. I would also like to welcome our distinguished guests for gracing this occasion to interact with us, Lieutenant General SP Kocher of COAI and Mr. Sanjeev Shriya, the founder of SmartChip Private Limited. Before I express my views any further, I am happy to share with you a brief about the PSD Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Friends, the PSD Chamber of Commerce and Industry has been working as a catalyst for the promotion of Indian industry, trade, and entrepreneurship for the past 116 years. We are a forward-looking, proactive, and pan-India dynamic apex organization. As a partner in progress with industry and government, the PSD Chamber, with a special focus on MSMEs, works at the grassroots level with more than 150,000 direct and indirect members, having strong national and international linkages for propelling progress, harmony, and integrated development of the Indian economy. The COVID-19 pandemic has exposed a clear digital divide. Those companies which had already invested in digital operating models have fared much better than those which had not. In fact, for many businesses, the continuity of operations critically depends on their digital capabilities. Business transformation through the application of digital technologies, whether it be social media, mobile, advanced analytics, or cloud computing, is an essential weapon in the armory of any company looking to innovate and grow in the world, in a world demanding much greater operational agility and efficiency than before. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought into sharp focus the absolute criticality of strong telecom networks and an organization's ability to actually use it effectively to ensure that the operations are running seamlessly and smoothly. The primest example is, for example, this Zoom meeting that we are having, which has totally replaced the need for physical meetings, which were indispensable in the past, and have become a critical tool for running businesses and interacting across the world. In India's new and emerging digital ecosystems of the future, business will have to find a new way to engage with the customers. All Indian stakeholders will need to gear up to capture the opportunities and manage the challenges of being a connected nation. A large part of the economic value created is coming from digital innovation, ecosystem propositions, and new technologies. The world was already embracing digital labor and bots, but the COVID-19 should accelerate this shift towards greater automation. Businesses would want to increasingly leverage digital platforms, which can continue uninterrupted in the event of a crisis and reduce dependence on personnel. The pandemic is transforming people's approach towards work, mobility, and flexible working models. We expect to see an acceleration of alternative work delivery models as well as employment constructs. Most of these new models would be powered by digital platforms for realization. Innovation driven by technologies will increasingly power the competitive edge for companies in the market. The role of future work would be built on the triad of skills: domain functional skills, digital skills, and professional skills. This is an opportune time for organizations to reflect on the digital talent base and leverage the downtime to build a pervasive digital skill foundation. Digital transformation could be a strong lever in the organization's response to the current crisis and give them an opportunity to realign their businesses and operating models to the rapidly changing business landscape. I am sure that today's interaction shall help understand about the transformation of India's digital landscape in view in the time of this pandemic and how it will empower and help flourish the industry further. My best wishes for a great seminar. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Thank you very much. And as you have rightly said, this kind of webinars and all interface which is happening nowadays virtually is really a big, I should say, development as far as entire industry is concerned, number one. And of course, as President has rightly said, without this, just imagine if we would not have such kind of development, then what it would have happened really. So I think telecommunications has really made our life very easy. So with this note now, before I go to our special guest today, let me request Shri Rajiv Gupta, our chairman of the Telecom Committee, to kindly say a few words. Over to you, Rajiv Gupta ji.
Thank you. Thank you, Alok ji. Shri Hariranjan Rao ji, Joint Secretary Telecom DOT and Chief Guest of today's session, Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochar, Mr. Sanjeev Shreya, Mr. Sanjay Agarwal, President PSDCCI, Mr. Sandeep Agarwal, Mr. Saurabh Sanyal, and other dignitaries who have joined this webinar. Greeting to all. It is my proud privilege to welcome you all to this interactive webinar that we are organizing today on the occasion of World Telecom and Information Society Day 2021 with a theme, Accelerating Digital Transformation in Challenging Times. A year since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, organizations have undergone major transformation as they seek to strengthen resilience, increase agility, and deliver greater efficiencies. The COVID-19 crisis has not only highlighted the critical role of information and communication technologies for the continued functioning of societies, but it has also brought to the fore startling digital inequalities, both between and within countries. It has highlighted the urgency of accelerating digital transformation. I quote from Harvard Business Review, where Mr. Vijay Govindarajan and Anup Srivastava has written, so many of us whose daily schedules have become a list of virtual meetings can attest that there are hardware and software issues that must be addressed before remote working can really take off. We have no doubt that digital technologies like mobile, cloud, artificial intelligence can be deployed at a scale, yet we also know that much more needs to be done. On the hardware side, bandwidth capacity and digital inequalities need addressing. The F2F, face-to-face setting, levels a lot of differences because everyone in the same room gets the same delivery. Online platforms, however, amplify the digital divide. And this digital divide is particularly steep in India. Urban people have access to latest machines, better bandwidth, more stable Wi-Fi connections, and more sophisticated audio-visual gadgets as compared to the rural population. The National Sample Survey on Education indicates that only 25% of Indian households have internet access and a mere 11% own computers. And according to TRAI, even though about 78% of Indians have mobile phones, the density of this distribution in rural areas only tallies up to around 57%. Also, mobile phones are convenient for a variety of reasons, but try completing a lengthy assignment in one, it doesn't work quite as well. But even before we consider gadget availability and internet connection, there is one more fundamental consideration, that is electricity. As we all know that power supply in rural areas is really quite patchy. Unquote. In the corporate world, business operations from procurement, finance, accounting and HR to supply chain, learning and enterprise reporting functions have all been subject to a significant stress test in recent times. This has also forced many businesses to navigate crisis conditions in new and unprecedented ways. When COVID-19 erupted, many companies realized that business as usual approaches to serving customers, working with suppliers, and collaborating with colleagues, or just getting anything done would no longer work. They were forced to increase the speed at which they did everything, from decision-making and productivity to utilizing technology in new ways to accelerating innovation. As companies adopt new ways of working at speed, executives also became interested in moving to flatter, non-hierarchical structures and taking more radical approaches to decision-making and ways of working. This is a time for the companies to introspect themselves, rethink their corporate strategies, and take a proactive approach towards organic and inorganic growth. With the world grappling with the devastating impact of the coronavirus pandemic, the need to pursue a digital transformation agenda is more acute than ever. The digital revolution has placed India in a unique leadership position globally, and the country is at the cusp of witnessing the next technology wave. With broadband capacity being built through 4G, BharatNet projects, and likely 5G, India is witnessing adoption of innovative IT applications in all areas, such as smart cities, expanded industrial IoT applications, autonomous vehicles, drones, Wi-Fi and public transport, immersive entertainment, 5G-enabled communication involving augmented reality devices and virtual reality headsets. In India, as part of our mobility report, we have been projecting that 5G-enabled digitization revenues will be approximately $17 billion by the end of 2030. Recent years have seen very strong growth in demand for smartphones in India. This rapidly changing economic and social landscape in India requires more continuous investment in physical, digital, and policy infrastructure. Overall, India has seen a formidable growth in terms of its digital footprint. Government too is pushing various initiatives towards the goal of tech-driven infrastructure. There is always a room for new inventions, and hopefully in the coming years, we will be able to bridge the urban-rural digital divide and also get to experience AI in a different new way. I'm sure that today's session will prove to be a learning experience for all of us. I welcome all of you once again to this webinar. Thank you.
Chairman, for setting the theme for today's discussions, and I think it is really very wonderful to have you, sir, on board, and we would be seeking support and guidance in future too. But please bear with us, because PhD Chamber is an interactive platform. Post all our speakers speak, so we would also love to have some question and answer session. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also welcome a very great friend of PhD and a personal friend of mine, Professor N.K. Goyal Saab. So he is also here. I could see some of his comments on the chat box. Goyal Saab, we welcome you on board. And now it is my proud privilege to go to all our speakers of the day. We will be having first Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochhar, then we will have Mr. Sanjeev Shreya, and then we will have Mr. Rao, our chief guest. So ladies and gentlemen, let me share first a brief profile of Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochhar, who is the Director General, Cellular Operator Associations of India, and he is a decorated military veteran, retired as a signal officer in chief, the head of the ICT wing of the Indian Army. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. If people, those who are not speaking, my request to kindly put themselves on the mute so that there is no disturbance. So with this request, let me just give a brief profile of Lieutenant General Kochhar. He was responsible for planning, executing, and operating all telecom and IT networks of the Army. And prior to that, he was Additional Director General Personnel of the Indian Army, handling HR and empowerment of the 11 lakh strong army. And he was the first CEO and was still recently the CEO of the Telecom Sector Skill Council. And he holds a PhD, MTech, 2 MPhils, and has been a member on the Executive Council of National Board of Accreditation, Jamia Millia Islamia, and on the Academic Council of IGNOU. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome Dr. S.P. Kochhar. Dr. Kochhar, I must share it with you. Our Secretary General is also from Indian Army, who has been guiding us and supporting us, and he is also the head of the Secretariat. So with this brief profile, let me request Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochhar to kindly give his remarks. Over to you, Dr. Kochhar. Dr. Kochhar, if you can kindly unmute yourself and then speak.
Yeah, I said,
Yes,
thank you
you
very
are
much. Thank you very much. And good to know that there is another veteran sitting there
Yeah.
who will support me. So that's very good. And I hope to see him sometime soon, physically too. That telecom is important, has been underlined by the last 2 years in the COVID situation. Actually, if you compare, normally when we breathe, we don't bother about oxygen. It is taken for granted that oxygen is there. But now in COVID, we have seen when oxygen is not there, what happens? Same is the situation with telecom. It is oxygen of the environment. Supposing telecom were functioning very well, nobody even talks about telecom. It is taken for granted. But if the services get disrupted, then you feel your life getting disrupted totally, the economy getting disrupted totally. So that is the importance of telecom. And it has been aptly underlined during COVID. Now, if you see the journey of telecom, it is important to note that it is a remarkable journey, but it is nothing which is different from other sectors in the sense that it is all subscriber driven. When there were no roads, physical roads, people used to sell their produce in the local markets. Then came the roads, they went to town markets, district markets, and then became a huge network, and then so on and so forth, it continued. And then came telecom, and then they got connected to the national markets, to the international markets, and it became a harmonious market altogether, which is still continuing. And when, with this happening, there was congestion on the roads, and I was predicting about 2 years back also that this congestion on the road and the cost of running a company will force people to get into digital highways. At that point of time, I had no idea that it will be COVID which will catalyze the whole thing, but it has happened. People have now got onto digital highways. They can converse with each other, interact with each other, do business much better than they could do earlier. Right? So we are now all digital passengers on digital highways. Now, to be there, it is necessary to understand that when we are transiting from 5G, from 4G into 5G, and maybe later into 6G, what happens is that what you do today as innovation, out of the box solution, as Jugaad, gets caught up by the technologies, and then they introduce it into the next generation. Now, if you see, we are talking about 5G, and we are talking about network splicing. We are talking of edge computing. Weren't we doing this in 3G and 4G also? We were doing it, but we were doing it innovative. It is not part of the network system. 5G will encapsulate this entire thing into the networks. And what will be deficient, which we already started talking about, we are talking about security, we're talking about intelligence, all right? Now, this is something I presume will come in 6G. So it is a journey. What I'm trying to say, it is a journey which is progressing. And if you see, it is a natural progression which will continue happening, and things which catalyze this progression are 4. One is time. whatever services are to be made available, they should be made available in time. And the time should be shortened. Then second is the area of coverage or space. If we can increase the coverage with the harmonious services, then actually we are making the entire system harmonious. We are breaking down barriers of haves and have-nots. We're breaking down all types of barriers by only telecom. And the third is quality. And of course, the fourth is cost. This is what we've been wanting to catch up all the while. And this is what the telecom sector in India has been working on and working on quite successfully. Despite low profit margins, the telecom sector has been able to provide one of the best telecom services in the world at one of the least costs. And going further, I'm sure that the telecom sector is going to continue doing that, but will require different look, a different feel, different regulation, and different policy. Since we've got a very fertile mind and a very intelligent person from the government as part of the panel, Mr. Hariranjan Rao, whom I greatly respect, not because he's in duty, but because I know him from the time he was in Bhopal, and the way he reacts to situations is just fantastic. We would also solicit that there are three players in this ecosystem who actually are going to play a major role collectively in making telecom services much better. And those three are subscribers themselves. Second is government, and third, of course, is industry. All three have to play together. Subscribers have to learn how to use the new implements. They have to be discerning. They have to build up applications to meet their needs. And here, when I say subscribers, you will see that people like me, who are in the upper age brackets, are not going to play too much of a role except give our experience. It is the youngsters. It is the young people who will come out, the entrepreneurs, the MSMEs. They are the people who will contribute to this system. They are the ones who will capture and bring out innovative solutions. So we must encourage them. We must train people to use whatever we are rolling out. No point of rolling out a network and giving latest devices when they can't use it. So skilling is going to be important. And multifold types of skilling will come in, which maybe we can talk later. Second is the government. You see, wherever we faltered, it is because when we are shifting from an older system, say physical system, into a newer system, say automated system, what we are doing in India is we are copying the physical system and then making it into a process of a digital system. It doesn't work like that. We are not taking the advantage of the digital system. Now, when we are going from 4G into 5G, this is a new system. It is not an upgrade of 4G. And therefore, we have to be very careful that we don't look at it with the same eyes as we did 4G and 3G. The government has to see that they don't look at primary revenue coming out of telecom. They should look at the secondary revenue. As the president has brought out, that the industry is going to multifoldly benefit from telecom services. And the revenues which will come out of the industry by using these telecom services of 5G will be manifold of what is happening today. So if the government says that, okay, we'll encourage good telecom services to roll out by reducing the levies and the taxes, which in any case are very high, then they may lose out a little bit on the primary revenue initially. But the amount of revenue they'll get from secondary sources like industry riding on telecom will be fantastic. And please remember, 5G is not about empowering you and me. 5G is actually connecting machines to machines. And with Industry 4.0 coming in, this is going to be very important. And if you don't roll out a robust system with adequate amount of bandwidth forward and backward and with compatibility, it is not going to happen. It will just be an eyewash. So there, the government has to look at things in a different manner and see long term rather than seeing short term. And which we are in touch with them, and they are doing it. Hariranjan Rao himself is looking at fiberization, which is one of the most important things which is lacking today. He is himself looking at uniform ROW charges across the country. He is driving it very well. So those are the things which will help harmonize the entire networks. But there is much more that can be done. The regulation has to become light touch. The policies have to change, have to be looked at differently. old taxes and levies which have continued for no rhyme or reason are still continuing. They have to be dropped, and you have to look at the fresh regime separately. And that is a thinking that bureaucracy will have to adopt. As far as industry is concerned, industry has to see that they give a network which lasts. It should not be only going into areas where there is revenue and ignore areas where there is less revenue. This will primarily happen if their capital outlay does not get them the ROI that is minimum and essential. So therefore, all three of these are linked together and they have to go together. And therefore, we have to sit together collaboratively and see that the things move out in a much better fashion than what it is happening with older generations of networks. We will see telecom emerging as the unseen force behind the economy, increasingly so. We will see a lot of digitization. We will see a lot of digitalization, which has been missing from the ecosystem so far. So I think with that, I'll close my remarks.
Yeah.
And then if questions come up later, I will certainly come in again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kochhar. I think you have set very, very important points. You have said that the government has got to do a lot of initiative, and at the same time, on a lighter note, sir, I must share it with you. I was going through one of the WhatsApp messages. Those who are above 50, and as Sandeep ji has said in his remarks, कि उन लोगों ने लैंडलाइन टेलीफोन देखा, लैंडलाइन के बाद उन्होंने पेजर देखा, पेजर के बाद मोटरोला का एक मोटा सा फोन आता था सर, जो 15 किलो का तो लगता ही था वो, और उसके बाद अब हम इस पूरी चीज को देखते हुए आए हैं. नाउ सर, एज यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट 5G, आई थिंक वी पीपल आर रियली वेरी लकी. I also consider myself who is plus 50, 51 now, that we have seen that kind of change. So how that change has happened for the benefit of our audience, we are very happy to have Shri Sanjeev Shreya ji, who is the largest manufacturers of smart chips, over here in this part of the country over here. And we are very happy that he is one of a very senior, member of PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also give a very brief profile of Shri Sanjeev ji. Sanjeev Shreya has spent the better part of 3 decades in defining the landscape and creating new pathways for identity and digital security in India with biometric and smart card technologies at its core. He founded SmartChip and Syscom, the 2 companies that spearheaded the adoption and proliferation of smart cards, SIM cards, and biometric identity solutions in India. His thought leadership, vision, and engagement helped foster a number of high impact national programs such as Aadhaar, Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, and Jan Dhan Yojana. With these programs, India can proudly acclaim to lead the global stage for digital identity, financial inclusion, and digital empowerment. Let me share it with you, ladies and gentlemen, that Sanjeev Shreya ji is an entrepreneur at heart, and he's also doing the practice. He is driven to foster a conducive environment for continuous innovation and mentors young entrepreneurs. That is very important to note over here. He always encourage MSME and young entrepreneurs and startups regularly. I know personally very well him. He is a music lover and a keen follower of fine arts. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome, not only on behalf of PhDCCI, but on behalf of my president, Shri Sanjeev Shreya, to kindly give his remarks, and post that we will go to Chief Guest Shri Rao. So first to Shri Sanjeev Shreya ji. Over to you, sir. All yours.
Thank you, Yogesh ji. And very warm welcome to all the panelists, and especially to Shri Rao, whom I don't know whether he remembers that we met in Madhya Pradesh some years ago when he was heading IT and other departments in Madhya Pradesh. I think all of us agree that ICT is an integral part of our lives, as we just heard from Dr. Kochhar, that sometimes when we don't have IT or communication, then we start to feel the need for it or absence of it, just like recently we have felt in case of oxygen. To my mind, ICT is also the greatest leveler. It bridges distances. It brings people across the globe at par with each other. So whether you are in Los Angeles or Ludhiana, you are pretty much on the same page if you are well connected and if you have access to good bandwidth and good technologies and let's say ICT in general. So much so that, in current times, after the food and subsistence issues, the lack of, I would say, ICT or communication technologies or communication access is the single biggest challenge to development. And people are talking more and more about digital divide being more relevant in current times, especially now that we have this whole pandemic around us, which we could not imagine could have been fought the way it has been if we were bereft or if we were devoid of the developments of technology over the last 5-10 years. Personally, I'm very proud that I've been an integral part of this ICT journey of India. As Dr. Yogesh mentioned, I've had the proud privilege of launching the first SIM card in 1995, the first set of biometric devices for the Aadhaar program, and a number of, I would say, technologies, ICT technologies that have really put India at the forefront of digitalization or digitization worldwide. I mean, Aadhaar program itself is a shining example of what ICT technologies can do for a nation as big as India and for national development. Were it not for the Aadhaar program, we would not have been able to deliver subsidies to millions and millions of people. We would not have been able to deliver food and other benefits during the time of pandemic. The whole Aadhaar enabled payment system where people can take money or deliver money to their bank accounts just by using a fingerprint, that would not have been possible. UPI, the Unified Payment Interface, launched 3 or 4 years ago, is the global biggest and the best example of instant digital money transfer or P2P payments, and now even for P2M payments, that is sitting on the bedrock of ICT technologies. 3-4 billion digital payments every month are being done on the UPI platform, and there is no other example worldwide of the deployment of digital technologies for such massive, let's say, financial transactions. The recent example of vaccine delivery. Today India is probably the only country that you go and get vaccinated and you get a digital certificate as soon as you leave the vaccination center, or right there and then. And this digital certificate is also the very good example. Technologies can be really put to use for benefit of the country, not only economic benefit of industry and stuff like that, but also social benefit, delivery of fundamental health to people, sitting on the ICT technologies developed by the country and by us, all of us together. So ICT, of course, as I mentioned earlier, enables global collaboration. Now, in recent times, the whole vaccine development, it is not that vaccines were developed in one country or by one set of scientists. It is coming out of a collaborative exchange of information, ideas, knowledge, even experiences that have led to rapid development of vaccines, rapid manufacture of vaccines, and delivery of vaccines. I mean, I'm sitting on the board of a startup who is now actually tracking vaccine movement from the manufacturer to various supply chain points using blockchain. And therefore, we know at any point in time where each vial or carton of vaccine is. And therefore, we can redefine or better distribute the product which is currently in, let's say, shortage or not enough quantity available. The same thing for oxygen. I think you might have got the news that that there is a plan, or there has actually been launched an application that tracks movement of all oxygen, let's call it tankers, and other product movement of oxygen, thereby in a position to know whether any product is either stuck or moving or has some problems, and who is producing how much quantity in real time. So all of this would not have been possible without the actual deployment of ICT technologies, development of ICT technologies in real time for social benefit and for national outcome. During the pandemic, we have seen that remote working, uh, offices and companies have started to work remotely. More and more people are working from home, and this is bringing societal change. For my organization, I have many people working in Darbhanga. Earlier, they used to come to Noida, hire an apartment and come and work physically. Today, they are working from Darbhanga. They are working from smaller towns, Mandwa. They are working from many, many small towns because the ICT technology allows them to be as efficacious or almost as efficacious as would be in physical presence or proximity of the, let's say, the working environment. Distance education, digital health. I mean, these are many, many examples that we can remind ourselves that how integral, important, and I would say it's almost impossible, as Professor Dr. Kochhar mentioned, to imagine what would be life without such ICT technologies. I've also seen personally that rapid ICT deployment is helping agriculture. There are a number of startups that I'm involved with who are doing delivery of supply chain products to the remotest parts of the country using new supply chains of product, medicines, devices, FMCG goods, which would not have been possible if the remote villages were not under cellular coverage. And now if and when we have 5G, I think this will be even further accelerated. This is bringing work. This is bringing work to small villages, very small towns. Zoho is a very good example. I'm sure that all of us have heard about this wonderful company, Zoho, who is now experimenting to create development centers in villages. Now, this is again a completely breakthrough that we can actually bring development and work to villages rather than bring people from villages to cities. And therefore, we don't deal with problems of crowding of cities, migration and then reverse migration and other challenges. So I think pretty much all of us recognize the importance of ICT and the role that it is playing more and more, and integral role that it is playing in the development of various facets of our country. But of course, such developments also bring challenges. The biggest challenge, of course, is creating trust. When you are doing a transaction in a remote manner, there is this whole problem of trust. Who am I talking to on the other side? Is it the same person who professes to be? Is my channel secure? Is there a cyber security issue? Is the vendor trusted? And these issues are now becoming more and more important and relevant. Is my data safe? What about GDPR or privacy issues? And these are some issues that I think Shri Rao is here. I'm sure that the department is dealing with it, and all of us have to bring information and knowledge and access to this. Trusted vendors, as I mentioned, the government is very cognizant, thankfully, that we need vendors in the supply chain of telecommunications and ICT technologies that can be quote unquote trusted, that there is no backdoor, there is no other issue, that the data is remaining within the geography of India, and it is not shared with, let's say, third parties, or we are not, let's say, become victims of sponsored attacks. In IoT, because once 5G comes, and it is coming soon, we will also have proliferation of IoT devices. IoT devices means a device is talking to another device. There is not much intelligence of anybody trying to control what's happening. And in this case, even more so, the trusted vendor, the security of the channel, the security of the device, the numbering convention, all of these, the authentication, these are some very important points that we will need to think about and standardize. And I will be more than happy to participate in such efforts if and when PhD chamber should like to bring this up on the table to help make sure that what we develop within the country is, of course, state of the art, but also sovereign. And to that extent, we are able to protect ourselves should in case, the new age war will not be fought physically. The new age wars will be fought digitally. And we need to be ready in our minds with that. So that's all from my side, Dr. Yogesh. Thank you so much for inviting me here, and I'll be happy to take some questions as and when the time comes.
Thank you, Sanjeev ji. Thank you very much for your wonderful remarks. And you have absolutely, perfect that the new age war is actually going to be digitally, not physically. And we have number of questions comes into our mind. I am requesting each and every participant, apart from the welcome messages and greetings on the chat box, if you can put some questions in the chat box, that we would be able to take post Mr. Rao's, address to us. So my request to everybody, apart from greetings, please put some question also in the chat box. So ladies and gentlemen, it's our proud privilege that we have today with us as the chief guest of this telecom summit, Mr. Hari Ranjan Rao. And please allow me to give a brief profile of Rao Saab. Shri Hari Ranjan Rao is an IAS officer of 1994 batch from Madhya Pradesh, Kadar. He is a graduate in electronics and telecommunication from SGSITS Indore. He obtained postgraduate diploma in public policy and management from IIM Bangalore. Mr. Rao has 26 years of diverse experience in the field of administration, public policy, taxation, urban development, tourism, IT, and governance reforms. Mr. Rao has been managing director of various corporations in Madhya Pradesh as principal secretary tourism and managing director of Madhya Pradesh State Tourism Development Corporation. He has been credited with path-breaking tourism policy initiatives and ushering in investments in the tourism sector. And as Secretary IT, Mr. Rao introduced innovative models of e-governance and strengthened IT infrastructure for the state of Madhya Pradesh, including setting up of a state data center that is called SDC, State-Wide Area Network, that is called SWAN, SWAN, etc. Mr. Rao has been secretary to the Honorable Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh for 8 years and has contributed significantly to major policy innovations and governance reforms like rollout of Public Service Delivery Guarantee Act, setting up of CM Helpline Call Center and CM Dashboard Portal, to name a few. And currently, Mr. Rao is posted as Joint Secretary Telecom since February 2020. And he is also, ladies and gentlemen, let me share it with you, is the Mission Director of National Broadband Mission launched in December 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, let me request on behalf of PhD CCI and also on behalf of my President, Shri Rao, to kindly come forward and share his remarks. Over to you, Mr. Rao, all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Yogesh. And thank you to all the esteemed panelists who are here today in this August gathering. I feel honored to be part of this gathering and humbled to be treated as chief guest. I'm normally not used to it because, as I say, I have been part of normally the team, and as General Kochar would agree that normally soldiers would not like to be called as chief guest. So,
but sir, you have been as the chief guest when you were the tourism secretary, sir.
We
have called you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Level soldier in general is a role that keeps changing depending on the sort of profile that you are working on a particular moment.
Yes, President. Yes.
Looking at what you are doing, being in charge of the broadband mission, you are the right man to be the chief guest. No doubt about that.
Thank you. Thank you. I am specifically delighted to be present here today, despite a very interesting twist in my role. For last 10 days, I'm not sure if anyone of you know, I have been also attached in the health ministry to look after COVID-related challenges. Currently, I'm also handling oxygen-related challenges here. With my dual role of JSDOT, I'm also handling oxygen and PSA plants and a lot of other things. So this is a good challenge, and I feel again humbled because if you are able to be part of the troop that is actually going to the front, that is the biggest honor. So having said that, I can come back to today's subject, which is on a again a very august occasion for all of us who are part of the telecom fraternity. Well, I think all my speakers who spoke before me made so much of eminent sense and so much of contribution to the subject that I feel that I will be belittling their wisdom by repeating the same things. But whatever little I know about the subject, or I feel the way I look at it, I would like to share with you. You see, in last 2 years, telecom as a sector has proved its resilience and its relevance. Not that we needed to prove it, but it's just that it gives us some sense of satisfaction that, well, we also have a role to play, like Gilhari had a role to play in the Sena of Ram. And even the achievements, if you look at our sectoral achievements, if you look at last 5 years, 10 years, it gives sense of satisfaction. 95% and above of the citizens of this country are covered by mobile telephony. Large number of, more than 95% of the villages have now coverage of 4G technology. And now Honorable Prime Minister in his visionary statement has made us work on taking the fiber to each and every village in the country. So as far as coverage is concerned, as far as growth in the sector is concerned, I think we can take that sense of pride that yes, we are moving in the right direction. As far as spread is concerned, this is the way to go about it. But I dare say that we still have a long way to go. And it's a somber reminder to all of us that however reach we might have, the last mile would still remain a challenge. So as they say, there is always a slip between the lip and the cup. If my benchmark is that a villager or a tribal wearing only one langoti and a kulhadi in his hand, coming back from his forest early morning 4 o'clock, limited earning journey. If I can make a difference by whatever I am doing in his life, then my contribution is worthwhile. So even if we have reached more than 95% of the villages in the country, is everybody able to afford a mobile phone, and is everybody able to use the phone for making a livelihood? We need to answer that question collectively. I'm not pointing out at anybody, but we as citizens of this country, we as soldiers of this country's nation building, we still have a long way to go. And as our forefather said, rise awake, don't sleep till you achieve your goal. And this is not a goal which is not achievable. Many of the countries in the world have achieved that goal. So, 10 years back, I went to South Korea for an official training from my Nassori Academy. Then in South Korea, 98% of the household had an optical fiber laid right up to their homes. Now we are talking about a national broadband mission. Now we are talking about fiber to every village. And there are countries who had fiber to every home 10 years back. So long way to go. Let's not feel happy about on our own achievements and laurels. Let's look at that longer achievement where we have to reach. Now the question is, how can every poor villager afford a broadband at his home? Well, that's the answer that we have to give. We don't expect him to give an answer. We have to come up with alternative technologies, alternative methods of doing this, alternative models of financing this kind of an outreach. It gives me a lot of pain to share something which all of us know. In this pandemic of last 1 year, and unfortunately the second wave, more than almost 40 crore people have been again pushed back below poverty line. We know that jobs have been lost. We know it. We can't ignore it. How can we as a fraternity, which is the backbone of the nation, make a difference to their lives? I'll come back to this point once again towards the end of my my submission. But I must compliment the spirit of entrepreneurship in this nation and the startup ecosystem, which has always come to the rescue of such challenges. Just now, Sanjeev Shriyaji was eloquently mentioning about the way startups have significantly contributed to gaps in the outreach of various services. If they were riding the wave of telecom as a backbone, we are happy about it. You see, when Lord Rama was going to Ayodhya, going to Sri Lanka for his journey to win back Sita, even the horses, which were part of the Sena, they were also having the same sense of pride that we are going to do on a divine mission. We are here on a big mission. All of us, we need to have that sense of pride, that sense of purpose, that even if startup ecosystem is doing something great, we have a role to play. We have a constructive, positive role to play. But this startup ecosystem, and I'm requesting people like Sanjeev Shriyaji and Sandeep Agarwalji, who are doyens of this industry, to think what are the small measures that can be taken to enable this joblessness that has led in this pandemic to reverse. I don't know the methods. I'm not an expert in the subject, but somehow new innovative ways will have to be thought of bringing people back onto the roles of the companies where they have layouts. If they are ready to work from home, let them be allowed to do that. Even if it's reduced pay, let them at least start getting paid again for the work they know. Skills are getting lost because people are not able to come to their workplace. This is not something which we can really be comfortable with and be happy about. So another challenge is affordability. Now, all of us know that India has the lowest data rates in the world. It has got lowest charges in terms of connectivity. Or kitna niche jayenge? That could be the argument. And it is affecting the viability of the sector itself. That is true. Having said that, let us think from the perspective of that Langotiwala tribal sitting in a tribal district. Can he still afford today to go for a 4G connection? We have to think about it. If he cannot, then something else has to be done. Some other model has to come where such people have to be brought into the network. See, all the good work that Shriyaji was talking about, which is so important, whether you talk in terms of financial inclusion, whether you talk in terms of Aadhaar-based identification, whether you talk in terms of direct benefit transfer, all this will fizzle out if there are still people left out of the network of telecoms. So we as a telecom fraternity have this role to play, have this moral obligation in this country to ensure that everybody comes into the network. Not a single citizen of this country should be left out of the network for whatever reason. And if that reason is lack of affordability, let's chip it. Let's find something for them so that they again become part of the larger network. If they are not able to pay, let somebody else pay for them. But let them not be left out for the simple reason that they can't afford it. You see, we saw this pain in last couple of days when all of us must have felt that pain in our hearts, that let nobody die for want of oxygen. Come on, this is not we expect for a human being. I would say let's have the same pain. Let not a single citizen in this country be left out of poverty trap just because he didn't have a telecom connectivity, just because he couldn't use the telecom network for getting into the system of taking benefits that the government was wanting to give or the people wanted to give. I think that's a challenge. We'll have to continue to work on it. There comes another challenge for the governments, because we as telecom department or the telecom fraternity may work, but if the services of the government are not digitized fast, and that's what e-governance projects that Sanjeev talked about and everybody else talked about, I think a lot of work needs to be done by other departments, and time is running out. We don't have the luxury of, an IT project be rolling out in 6 years time or 5 years time. That's not the kind of timelines that citizens in this country are ready to wait for. Every government service has to come online and it has to be delivered through a mobile phone to citizen. I think that's the bottom line which everybody will have to work on. There is no question of looking at any other option. Let government buildings remain. Let service centers, health centers, all that remain. Let banks remain. Let every other government institution remain. They should be used only as a backup. A citizen should walk into a government office only and only if he has some specific reason to walk in. Otherwise, let him 99% of the time interact with the government through his mobile phone. If we could achieve that in next coming 2-3 years, and if the pandemic could be the reason for that, let it be. That's a good argument, a good excuse to do that. But I guess that is something which we all need to work together. Then comes the real issue, which General Kochhar will be very happy to agree with me, is the issue of right of way. You see, all this telecom infrastructure that we're working on, we know that it is affecting the quality of service because right of way for laying fiber, right of way for reaching out telecom infrastructure to the hinterland or to the congested urban areas is still a bottleneck. There is still so much of gap between understanding the way telecom infrastructure has to be looked at. You see, if our municipal corporations or our cities or our state governments look at telecom infra as a source of revenue, I think they are committing a big mistake. But we are failing, and I accept that we are failing if we are not able to explain this to them that this is for your benefit. So I think a lot of work has to be done on the communication front of conveying very clearly as to what is beneficial to the states and what is not. Next issue is of broadband, access to broadband. I just spoke about how every citizen in the country need to have an access to broadband. But I guess some role has to be also played by us in terms of providing and experimenting alternative technologies. So now we are thinking of broadband satellite. We are talking about fiber in every village, maybe fiber at every home, but there could be also some E-band, V-band related innovation, some 5G related innovation so that people could access very high quality broadband to their either mobile phones or their homes or whatever. But this is an area which is again work in progress. We need to reach that last mile. National Digital Communication Policy 2018 has provided a very good platform to work on. I have seen the recommendations of that policy, and I feel that if we work on all the policy instruments and statements, we would have already achieved quite a lot, and we still have to go a long way. Similarly, National Broadband Mission, which I am the mission director of, and I must say that a lot has to be done in the area. Well, a lot of lateral thinking is required. Business as usual perhaps may not yield the kind of results in the timeline that we expect. Some innovative ways of, say, setting up a national fiber authority through an act of the parliament is one of the ideas. We have just recently had some industry consultation also on that. Some innovative way of looking at QoS, how to improve the quality of service, innovative ways we will have to work on it. I have a very interesting way to express the role the telecom fraternity plays in our lives or in the society. You know, our role is like salt in the food. हिंदी में कहते हैं कि खाने में नमक जैसी हमारी भूमिका है, because you know, if you eat your food and you relish it, you never remember salt. Only when you don't have salt in the food, you remember the salt. So if you have a good backup telecom broadband connectivity, you will never remember broadband or telecom. But the moment broadband is switched off, everybody remembers broadband. So we will have to work with this kind of, you know, understanding that credits we will never get. For doing a good work, nobody will remember good broadband connectivity. But if you don't provide connectivity, people will come back to you and stone you. So, but we have to be, you know, mentally prepared for this kind of a role we have to play, and everybody has a role to play in the society. And there are a lot of real life constraints to this sector. And I don't have to tell you, all of you are experts, all the viewers today are experts. We have in this country, we have a strong democratic setup. It has got its own pluses and minuses. We have courts, we have government, we have politics, we have operators, we have financiers, we have customers. But a good policy making at a good sector is one which wriggles through all these challenges and still delivers. So what we need to look forward is the results and delivers. Of course, skilling of manpower will be a big challenge, but I think with Lieutenant General Kochhar, who has already been part of this Skill Development Council, we need to reach there. Process engineering is another area I think all of us will have to work. Government process engineering, I have been hearing it since my ages, but I think now even businesses will have to do process engineering the way we work. And that's an area of work. At the end of my submission, I can only say that each one of us is playing an important role in nation building. Let us remember that. Let us recognize our role. Let us feel proud about it and not belittle ourselves. And then take a vow that we will continue to work in this direction, because we have a role to play in nation building in whatever capacity, and we must make the country proud of this telecom fraternity on this World Telecom Day, that we have not let the nation down. On this positive note, I want to end my submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rao. A very
Thank
wonderful
you, sir.
pronunciation.
Excellent. Wonderful, sir.
Now the entire session is open for question and answer session. So first, I would request our mentor, Shri Sandeep Agarwal ji. He has one question. Over to you, Sandeep ji.
So, sir, great thoughts. And what you said, sir, I totally agree that the last man, if he cannot get the telecommunication benefits, then we are somewhere wrong and we need to improve our system. Totally agree. Sir, when Manoj Sinha ji was the minister, we had given from PhD chamber a submission. We've been constantly taking it that making broadband a utility. So we should declare broadband as a utility. And what we say is, while we make broadband into a utility, also give a bare minimum connection free of cost to everybody. It may seem that that will be a bad deal for the operators, but not necessarily, because operators can get from the states or the center or the cities, whatever. So if the state government of India is giving them a particular amount of connectivity every month, so that is a connectivity everybody can use a phone. If that can happen, sir, I can assure you that the cost will not be too bad. I sat down with the PS to the minister one day, and we also calculated the amount of cost which may happen if that is done. And frankly speaking, we can again sit with you and DOT, and probably we can look into this proposal along with COI, that together, if this proposal can be made, the last man standing will be getting the benefits of telecommunication, and probably that is going to improve our telecommunication network and the health of the industry itself work properly. We can discuss, so we will wish that probably we can have a discussion on that specific subject together. Another thing, sir, is on this issue of broadband availability. If we want to make it a utility, declare it a utility, then also the center and the states need to pass a law that every road being built need to have a highway for cables. Actually, they should be having a highway for all the utilities, but specifically I'm saying that it should also include the highway for cables. Even the back lane of a house or the front lane, they should have utility ducts installed. And DOT should take, we have been discussing, TRAI chairman also has told us this many times that we are with you. We also want this to happen. I think it is DOT which can spearhead this, and you for sure can do it. And if we are able to convince the states, or a law can be passed through the parliament itself, that every state has to follow this, this is going to really change the, otherwise, sir, the roads will be dug up and 10 times more frequently than what have been done now. even with only 4 operators left, each operator will be putting their own cables. So digging 4 times. Instead, dig once policy has to be taken, sir.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. Thank you for your observation. With your permission, now let me take some of the questions, Sandeep ji. Sandeep ji, are you there? I think we lost the connection with Sandeep Agarwal ji. He was having.
Alokji, just to add it, I think some beginning has been made. Now NHAI is putting the highway further or sort of duct for cables, electrical as well as telecom cables, while constructing new roads. Now it has to be pursued further, and maybe it could be taken up with all PWDs and state government.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be actually required in the sense that if you declare it a utility and then make sure that every authority is honoring that commitment, then practically every backlane in every residential area also would have a provision for, among other things, among the other utilities, optical fiber line also. So we'd be very happy to actually hear the views of Rao Saab on this, in fact.
Okay. So can we take, President, some of the questions?
I think this is an important issue. Let us have his view on
Okay.
this.
Okay. Rao sir, if you can kindly unmute yourself.
Talking about talking about having right of way along the highways and having big ones policy, what Sandeep ji mentioned about. You see, yes, National Highway Authority of India, they have mandated through their circular that all new highways should have right of way or should have corridor. There is a better word for this. I'm just slipping it my mind. To have a system to put in place the optical fiber cables. You see, where the challenge has been, there has been committees and there has been discussion on this. So when you talk of a multi-utility duct, it becomes little bigger and little complicated, because the moment you talk of multi-utility ducts, you start talking about telecom connectivity, then you talk of water supply pipeline, then you talk of sewer network, then you talk of gas pipeline, and then the volume or the size of the duct becomes bigger and bigger, and then the cost also becomes bigger and bigger. And the question comes, who will finance all this? Because in terms of road infrastructure, if you have to have a duct, utility duct of this kind, where even gas pipeline and sewer network and water supply and everything has to go, then it's a huge investment. I have been arguing, and the DOT has been arguing, that we don't talk about the duct for every other utility, but at least telecom ducts, which are not that expensive, which are not that big, because optical fiber is not something which requires huge ducts. It's a very simple ducting that has to be done. That should be mandatorily allowed. They have agreed, but the point is how effectively their contract managers are able to enforce those provisions in the contracts. So in the new concept note that we are working on, we are shortly likely to publicize it for a wider consultation. And of course, the PhD chamber will also be one of the major contributors to that. We are saying that let there be a National Fiber Authority that will make provisions for all such common ducting facilities in the country. It will not finance it. It will not own it. Let the ducts be owned by the respective agencies. But the guidelines be under the Act of the Parliament be given by this authority. Second issue that is being talked about is big ones policy. You see, big ones policy would mean that in a municipal area, if there is a particular road or a particular area, and if once it has been dug out for laying the ducts, then everybody should not again come and dig it out, and the same duct should be utilized by everybody else. Now that's again possible only when you have a common repository at the national level, where the entire fiber grid of the nation is mapped into one location and it can be verified. So, and it is again not a rocket science, because this is something which is being done in countries like US, in many other countries, where call before you dig is one major policy instrument. In US, you cannot dig anywhere without having called at a particular number, where they have the GIS mapping of that area, and they tell the civil contractor that no, you cannot dig it here. There is a fiber laid underneath. Give us 7 days time. The fiber company will come and remove the fiber. You do the digging work, finish it, then they will lay their fiber back again. Something of that sort. That's call before you dig. And dig once policy is that say municipal corporation of Pune or Maharashtra or Nagpur. Once in an area, somebody has already dug and somebody has already laid the ducts. So some other player comes, the municipal corporation says, sorry, there is already a duct laid. You can use the same duct and don't necessarily dig once again and spoil our roads and all. Ideally, this could be done by municipalities for all the utilities because we know that roads get cut on every alternative day, either for the power line, then a telephone line, then another telephone line, then a third cable line, then a water supply line, then a sewer line. So dig once would mean that once you have already laid the ducts, you don't have to do it repeatedly. But this is something which people working at the ground level need to understand, absorb, and it has to be built in as a policy. Some of these things we are trying to address by having a national fiber authority, with state fiber authority, with district fiber authority. We are thinking various options. We have come up with a model. I mean, again, say it's a collective work of few people. But once it comes into public domain for your comments, I will be very happy if PhD and members look into the concept and give their ideas. Because as I said, we need to do something which is radically different from what we are doing today. Otherwise, business as usual would not cut the ice as we might be expecting. Thank you.
Thank you. President, can we take some of the questions?
Please, please, please.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we have just 10 more minutes, and before Mr. Mukherjee and Mr. Sanyal speaks, we will take 2 or 3 questions as advised by President. Sir, there is a question for Dr. Kocher. What is the effect of SG on, oh, sorry, not SG, it is 5G. It's always comes into our mindset when SG speaks. It is 5G. SG over here doesn't mean Secretary General. It is 5G on the telecom industry, Dr. Kocher. And there is another similar question of Mr. Chandrika Prasad. And he's also asking that at present, Railway have their own GSMR frequency band for use of 5, operation and safety. So what is the likely policy on 5G on this? So Dr. Kocher, if you can kindly briefly give your opinion, sir, on this. Over to you, Dr. Kocher.
Thank you so much. The first thing is that the government has very recently announced that 5G trials will happen. Right. At this point of time, there is no 5G installation or trial is happening in the country. So all these rumors that are going around are wrong rumors. This is one. Second thing is what effect it will have on the telecom industry. I would say the question would rather be what effect will it have on the consumer? Because finally, whatever is being done for the consumer and not for the industry. And that is the aim of both the government as well as the industry. The consumer will immensely benefit, but like Mr. Rao just mentioned, the benefits have to reach consumers in all parts of the country. At 5G being a technology which is going to be more or less machine-to-machine benefits, therefore, we see that the use cases which will emerge initially will be in areas which have industry of that nature, Industry 4.0, which is coming up. That will have more use cases. But that does not mean that 5G will not go into rural areas. If the subscriber has a requirement and is willing to adopt 5G with all its connotations, it will reach. Operators and the government will ensure that it goes there. Other than that, as far as industry is concerned, there will be a time lapse before the huge amount of capital investment which has to be made into 5G starts giving a ROI. And that part is something which we are in talks with the government to see that it helps enable that type of capital investment, keeping in mind that the ROI is going to come much later. Another effect which we are seeing is that the forward haul and the back haul is now interlinked, and the same frequencies can be used both for forward and backhaul, and therefore the manner in which the government allocates or allocates by auction the frequencies will again have to be as a bouquet rather than backhaul separately and forward haul separately. Otherwise, there will be congestion again at the collection point. So fiber becomes extremely important, like Hariranjan Rao just mentioned. Fiber becomes extremely important, and in areas E and V bands become important in lieu of fiber. So these are the things that are plaguing the industry as of now. Fortunately, the trials have mentioned by exclusion as to who all can participate. So that is one gray area which has been cleared. Another gray area will be the trusted devices website, which will come up. So then the trials can commence without any ambiguity, and then they can start looking at the type of use cases that will become the order of the day once 5G gets rolled out. These are some of the points I thought will interest the question as an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kochar. Thank you very much. I'll take two more questions. One question is for Sanjeev ji, another is for our chief guest, Mr. Rao, and Mr. Mathur, one of our member, is also, correcting me that he's saying, Dr. Yogesh, it is not SG, it is 5G. I said, yeah, it is 5G is very important. Everybody is talking about 5G, and Dr. Kochar has already given the answer on 5G. Sanjeev ji, there is a question from Mr. Rajkamal, and he's asking, can we extend the range of wireless communication without increasing the frequency of a particular, as it was has a harmful for environment, birds, and even sometimes human also. And I will just add one more question, Sanjeev ji, with your kind permission. My son, who is in 12th standard, he is asking me after seeing Mahabharat on TV, that Papa, all these people, those who are coming, or Krishna ji, or everybody, they are coming virtually during those times. They were also having smart chips, or do you feel that in future there would be smart chips in the mindset of the people also, so that they can close eyes and then connect virtually? And I think if that kind of technology comes, so I was just answering him, I said, then my SG will not be able to give me calls at least 5 times in a day. I will close my eyes and give him answers through the smart chips. Over to you, Sanjeev ji.
Well, that's very interesting point that Yogesh ji, your son, is asking. Anyway, that is more in the realm of holographic imagery and I would say virtual interaction. So, Mahabharat happened, I don't know, probably 5,000 years or something.
5,000 years back, yeah.
So I don't think we have the benefit of being, any of us having personal benefit of knowledge of what was actually transpiring. But yes, many things that we hear at that time about Sanjay knowing at a distance what is happening and how the war is being fought, or about various kinds of arms and implements being used. I mean, it is not out of the realm of possibility that there was quite a bit of virtualization or imagination at that time. But anyways, that's more a academic discussion. Coming to the first question, that can the range of wireless communication be increased without changing the frequency? I'm not a specialist on the wireless com side. I think Dr. Kochar can probably better answer this question. So I would leave it to him as a signaling and a radio expert, probably to answer this question a bit more in depth. This would be out of my depth. So I leave the floor to Dr. Kochar.
Dr. Kochar, can you just answer briefly, sir? Then I will go to the last question for Mr. Rao.
Can you give me the sense of the question again, because there are many parts?
Yeah, the question has been asked by one of our participants, Mr. Rajkamal. Is saying, can we extend the range of wireless communication without increasing the frequency of a particular, as it is harmful for environment, birds, and even sometimes human also?
See, the range depends on two things. One is the frequency, of course, and the second is the power output. Right? The power output has been fixed by government as a regulated output. So that has been kept in mind because of EMF radiations, and it is 1/10 of what is generally permitted in the world. So India does not permit more than 1/10 of the internationally accepted power output for the safety of its population. As far as frequency is concerned, the higher the frequency, shorter is the range. That is physics. So there is really nothing that we can do about it. So these two factors play a very crucial range. As far as 5G is concerned, and you link it to the to this range part, 5G is not dependent on any frequency. 5G is agnostic of frequency. So hence, where we require more range, we will go in for lower frequency, but which means lesser capacities. Where we require more capacities but lesser range, we will go in for higher frequencies. And both will talk to each other. So that is a short answer to this question.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kochhar. Rao Saab, I will just take one more question. In fact, another very important thing Mr. Vivek Ahuja is also saying, please add my question also. So I'll just add these two questions, Rao Saab, for your kind information and for your answer. One is from Mr. Pursoon. He's saying that how does government see suggestion of COAI DG that government should look at secondary revenue from telecom? And what is the Department of Telecom doing to implement NDCP 2018 strategy to rationalize telecom levies spectrum price? Similar question is, yes, of course, from Mr. Vivek Ahuja. Is saying in the current scenario, many companies have had to improve their bandwidth to provision work from home, but ISPs are blaming ROW not being approved in pandemic scenario. How to address this, sir? And ROW within the buildings like malls, multi-storied office complexes is a problem. Only one or two ISP are allowed, and for a large organization, they cannot build their own, choose their ISP due to these restrictions by local landlords who favor only one or two ISP. So, would you like to comment, Rao Saab, on these two?
Okay, thank you, Yogesh. To the first question about the revenue, I'll come straight to the point without beating behind the bush. You see, the challenge right now is that the spectrum usage charges, the licensing fee, the spectrum auction, multiple rates, multiple charges is what industry is demanding that should be rationalized and it should be brought down so that the industry is able to deploy more resources for the expansion of the network, and in turn, the revenues would increase and that would give you the government the secondary revenue. That's the suggestion. Now, the answer to this question at my level is not possible at this point of time, simply because I am a very junior person in the hierarchy, number one. Number two, this is not something which has to be decided by one or two persons. It is the entire government at the topmost level which will have to take a policy decision. And again, I must tell you that policy decisions are not that easy to be taken, because you also have Supreme Court and various courts also having their own interpretations on various judgments. So it's become a little tricky issue. I can't say that the decision can be taken or not taken or when will it be taken. But generally at the level of common man, when you look at it from outside, this is what appears to be the best course of action. However, from the government's perspective, I think TRAI has made certain recommendations. NDCP does talk about rationalizing these charges, and some effort is internally being made. But when will it see the light of the day, in what form, and how the courts will view it is something which is beyond my mandate to even speak about. Coming to the second issue of challenges that ISPs are facing in terms of ROW permissions during the COVID period. I guess they were facing challenges even before the COVID period. That's what exactly Mr. Kochhar and all other associations have been talking to us, and that is why National Broadband Mission has taken upon itself as one of the major mandates to sort out the issue of ROW. We tried to bring in ROW rules 2016 under Indian Telegraph Act, whereby we mandated simpler uniform rates. But we are seeing that implementation of even that is not happening on the ground to the spirit to which it was originally mandated for. So there are reasons. One simple reason is that it's a federal structure. So you have state governments, you have municipalities, and everybody is independent. I mean, they have the mandate and power in the constitution. You can't stop a municipal corporation for charging something because they derive their power from constitution. We can fight it out in the court of law. You can go to the Supreme Court, some stakeholder can go to Supreme Court, but we have to finally think at till what point we'll keep fighting on this issue to the Supreme Court every time. So, as I was mentioning, in the concept of National Fiber Authority, we are wanting that let there be a slightly more democratic way of deciding these things, and let there be better understanding on the issue. You see, charging or not charging is a smaller issue. Giving permissions and in a streamlined manner is perhaps the largest challenge. So at this point of time, I can only say that this is in the purview of the state governments and local bodies. We can sensitize, we do sensitize, but then there are different people, there are different priorities, and it gets relegated to the background. Third issue is in-building solution. So there are resident welfare associations who give preference to a particular ISP, and then they don't allow others to come into it. Again, I guess this requires stronger provisions under the municipal laws so that resident welfare association do not subscribe to such practices which do not allow competition to come in and restrict themselves to a monopolistic practice. So, as I said, telecom as a subject is like khane mein namak. As long as everything is going fine, nobody bothers and nobody recognizes. But when things get stuck, people come to us. Welcome. But we cannot address every issue unless and until we have every other stakeholder also on board and they are also syncing with the same wavelength. Correct. So if municipalities and urban governments and state governments do not think the way we think, then there is a problem. And our job is to convince everybody, bring them on board and work together. And it's a work in progress. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Great, Rao Saab. I think that is the crux of this thing. That is the ecosystem where everybody has to handhold each other and everybody really need to work together so that India can be benefited, at large, and especially the telecom industry develops. So, ladies and gentlemen, 5 more minutes before we wrap up today's session. Before I request our co-chairman Alok Mukherjee to give the concluding remarks and also to share what kind of programs the telecom committee is going to do in future. And of course, we would be putting everything in the minutes and the wish list, and we would be sending it to Rao Saab as far as the telecom committee is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the proud privilege to invite Mr. Saurabh Sanyal, who has served, as I have said at the outset, with the Indian Army for more than 30 years. And he is the Secretary General of PSDCCI, to give his thank you note, which he has told me over phone. He would like to give the thank you note. So, Colonel Saurabh Sanyal, please give your thank you note, and post that I will go to Mr. Alok Mukherjee. Over to you, Mr. Sanyal.
Thank you, Dr. Yogesh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to really profusely thank all of you, all the speakers, distinguished chief guest, guest of honors, all speakers, our chair and co-chair and mentor of the committee, as well as our president, who set the tone and tenor of the conference today on the World Telecommunication Day. It was a very, very useful and vital program, which we all were hearing, and also the participants who have joined us today. I wish to put only 2 questions to the august panel here. One is the connectivity in the Northeast has been suffering for decades, and it is a very vital and strategic program now, especially when our adversaries sitting across the border in the northeastern region have developed their rubberized crumb roads as well as the e-ways right up to the line of control as well as to the international borders. We are lagging, we are far lagging behind. I had served in that area for a good 8 years while I was in the armed forces in the Corps of Engineers, and we found it extremely difficult to communicate, especially with the special roads which were built to fight our, take our forces from the hinterland to the borders. And we were to the extent developing roads with helicopters by making helipads all across the laterals and connecting them with the hinterland. But the telecommunication connectivity was very, very poor. And it became that we had to use satellite communication for communicating from the border areas to the hinterland to get our resources. And I believe my friends are there who are also serving in that area. It still continues to be a challenge. So I would like our chief guest, Mr. Hari Ranjan Rao, to kindly throw some light on it. And also our Lieutenant General Kochar, who has served in the signals, who has been there and done that in those areas, who has also planned many things for the forces, because this is one part of the country which has been not really been part of very, very well connected with the mainland, and there is a and it takes the strategic importance today to a scale of 9 out of 10. So may I request this question to be answered, whatever is happening?
Okay, quickly, I'll answer. In Northeast, I was there in the month of uh, uh, January in the Northeastern Council meeting in Shillong, and very closely we are watching the progress in Northeast. Uh, every single village in the Northeast is being covered under the USF project, and hopefully in another 1 year's time or 1.5 years' time, we should be able to provide connectivity to every village in the Northeast. That's as far as telecom connectivity is concerned, mobility. Second issue is of fiber. So as Honorable Prime Minister has already announced, we have to fulfill it. And if every village in the Northeast gets the optical fiber, you would know the power of connectivity in that region. So yes, what you are saying is correct. We are seized of the matter, and it's being reviewed at the highest level. I can say only that Northeast connectivity is reviewed almost every quarter, every 3 months. We are accountable, we are answerable. I guess in another 2 years, we will reach 100% saturation in Northeastern region, because it's strategically important for us as a nation, and otherwise also for the citizens, it's very important to have good connectivity. I think that much I can tell you.
Thank you, sir. My second small question, I'll just take one half a minute now, is the call drops which we get in communicating even in the metros. There is the frequency of the call drops have started at a very, very major level. In fact, sometimes it becomes so disturbing that you are talking on a very important subject with some life-saving situations, and you are unable to immediately get reconnected. So this is another issue which is happening in metros. Is it because of the congestion on the lines, or is it because we are totally depending on the private cellular operators and they are not able to match up? Because when it was BSNL and MTNL, we had seamless connectivity. I would appreciate that about a decade back. But now slowly and steadily, when the players of big players like Airtel and Vodafone, they're coming in, they're not able to cope up with the progress and the modernization which we expected. So this
All
is
my members are there, sir, from Airtel and Vodafone. In fact, they would be answering.
No, there is a huge amount of call drops. This is a practical question I'm asking you, because I face it day in and day out when I'm talking to our president or our senior vice president.
On a lighter note, sir, Sanjeev ji is working very hard on the chip, sir. As I have said, my son was asking, so Sanjeev ji is working very hard on the smart chip, and that would be given it to each one of us, so that such drops are not there. But anyway, Lieutenant General Kochar, would you like to comment on this call drop, sir?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on both.
Yeah.
On what he said about Northeast. Now I'm wearing the hat of an ex-SONC, and as an implementer, I'll tell you, there is a gap between the policy and how it can be implemented on ground. Northeast actually consists of, and let me first qualify that by saying that I have spent a number of years in that area, both in the plains of Northeast as well as in the mountains of Northeast. So I'm familiar of communications there. Northeast can be divided into two parts. One is the plains, which is relatively easier for communication.
Yes.
And therefore, if there is a policy to take fiber to every village, it will happen, but it will not happen as fast as possibly the government feels, because there are other challenges there where the working hours are limited. You also know, when you are building roads, you are not permitted movement because of hostilities by the locals, because of inter and intra challenges between various tribes. So Northeast is not like the rest of the country. It is quite different. That ecosystem has to be understood. The second part is about the mountains. Mountains are a different kettle of fish altogether. Any line of sight communication there is very, very difficult, no matter what funding you get. So there will be many areas where we will require satellite communications, and the type of satellite companies that are coming up, they will take this communication to those type of areas. Actually, their uh, prime focus should be there because it is sparsely populated. Maintenance, even if you are able to provide a network of line of sight communication, maintenance of that is impossible, right? Because there won't be villages, there won't be contractors, and it won't be possible for you to even patrol the entire network regularly, right? Uh, the type of communication which are possible, line of sight, is VHF. So that is something that the defense forces have always been resorting to, but that obviously cannot match up with the state-of-art communication, and hence they are not really the right type of communications. What is being done is, without going into too many details, that along the ridges, a linear communication grid is being laid, both by civil as well as defense, and then attempts are made to connect these ridges. So it will be a laddered communication. It will not be a fully networked communication. So that is possible. It's not easy. It is not easy. The way communications are provided there is again through a contractor system, which is really non-existent in that area because there is no population, and hence external workers have to come and start working there. Then thereafter, maintenance of that communication is a bigger bug, right? So with satellite coming, there will be sucker. Now with government's increased focus there, possibly things will improve. With NFS coming, things will improve. We have two projects from the Army, ASCON Phase 4 and EVAN, which have been interlinked. So as far as the borders are concerned, communications have started looking up. It is not what it was earlier. As far as the plains of Northeast are concerned, communications have started looking up. There's not much of a problem there. Yes, maintenance is a problem. That is not because of communication, that is because of the environment. So, Councillor Nal, I hope that answers that part of the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank
The second part is about call drops. I would, right in the beginning, qualify, nobody wants call drops. Okay, neither do the operators want call drops, nor do the subscribers want call drops. I would like to disagree with you by your statement that the BSNL provides better communication. I'm sorry. Competition in the private sector is what has brought up the telecom sector in India. Public sector could not match up 25 years back, and therefore the private sector was brought in, and the modernization has taken place because of them. Okay, and not because of only BSNL and MTNL. Even today, if you see, BSNL networks and MTNL networks cannot compare with other operators' network. Everything else being equal. Yes, BSNL and MTNL are more in presence in the rural areas because of the mandate of a socialistic type of communication, and there their networks are the only networks available, so you can't really compare. In metros, the networks of private operators are better, but there are many things which contribute. I'm not defending it. If there is a call drop, there is a call drop. It has to be corrected. And I'm talking like a user. The reasons which are coming up to stop this call drop is we require more towers, and these towers are not being permitted to come up. Invariably, the towers were coming up on private pieces of land, private buildings, etc., etc. Because, but of late, there is a fear of EMF, of electromagnetic damaging health. Wrong fear. Nonetheless, but RWS want good communication, but they don't want a tower to come up there. And in villages, they want good communications. They pull down the towers. Right. So you can't have both. Right. The second thing which is causing a problem is the power output. Right. DoD very stringently monitors the power output, very stringent, and the punishment is very severe in terms of finances. Huge amount of fines are levied if power transmission exceeds the norms. and they measure it very frequently. Now that I mentioned earlier also, the Indian law says 1/10 of what is internationally acceptable. This was a judgment which was made many years back, and it is still continuing. We are not disputing that. If the government says it is going to be 1/10, we are nobody to say it should be more than that. But because the power output is less, right, and we are going into higher frequencies, so therefore the range of that frequency reach is less. Therefore, we require more towers. Now, neither the power can be increased, nor the new towers are coming up, nor is fiberization coming up at the speed at which it is required because of ROW problems. So therefore, the network coverage becomes a problem, right? So these are the factors which are actually contributing. It doesn't matter whether it is Reliance or it is Airtel or Voda or MTNL or BSNL for that matter. These things are common for all, right? And as subscribers increase, these become more critical. But as a subscriber, I'm not happy with my call dropping. I'm just not happy, right? And there was a penalty also which was imposed on this by TRAI, right? So therefore, it's not that the operators are deliberately not paying attention to call drops. They're going to lose money if they don't do it, right? But the question is that the environment now is becoming a little more difficult, and that environment has to be handled. DoT and we are jointly handling it. We're trying to educate people that towers are not going to harm you, right? Because you are saying that microwave frequencies are going to harm you. You've got a microwave in your kitchen, it's transmitting 100 times the power. You don't get harmed by that, but you are willing to believe people that EMF is going to harm you. There are bird nests on that tower, nothing happens. But again, डर लगता है कि अगर हम टावर लगा देंगे तो हमारी हेल्थ खराब हो जाएगी, right? So this is a dichotomous situation, but this is a day-to-day affair. Both BSNL, both the DoT and us are working together on this. Yeah. And despite what public opinion may be, DoT and the operators work together, and they join hands and put their shoulder to shoulder together and try to resolve these problems. Only place where we get into arguments is the fees and levies and taxes. Yes. Okay. So certainly the call drop should not be there. And on behalf of the operators, I can say that we try our best to say that it doesn't happen. As far as investment is concerned, it is a ongoing effort for every operator to improve their network because it is competition for them. If they don't do it, they'll not be there again in the next year. Right. So I hope that answers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kochhar. But
so when can we expect that there'll be seamless communication, there'll be seamless networks in our country, sir?
Yes. So we will have a separate program also on this. That I can assure you, Secretary General. And as Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochhar has also said, and we will ensure that each and every operator is also there in that program. And we hope that there should not be more call drops. On a very serious note, ladies and gentlemen, now I have last but not the least, my co-chair, Mr. Alok Mukherjee, will give the concluding remarks briefly. Over to you, Mr. Alok Mukherjee.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yogesh. Hariranjan Raoji, the Joint Secretary, the Telecom Department of Telecommunication. Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochhar. Sanjeev Shiaji, the founder of SmartChip. Mr. Sanjay Agarwal, the president of PHDCC. Sandeep Agarwalji, mentor, the Telecom Committee. Sanjeev Gupta, the chairman of the Telecom Committee. Mr. Saurabh Sanyal, the Secretary General, and Dr. Yogesh Srivastava. See, it's my privilege to give a thanks to the speaker and to the chief guest. Before I go and to the anything else, I'm really thankful, and I'll give you the example of the humbleness of the Mr. Rao. You know, Kritika called me, the Mr. Yogesh Srivastava's team. She said that we are not able to get in touch with Mr. Rao or his team. I said, no problem, give it to me, the number and all. I'll send a message and I'll get a confirmation. And he took just a 30-second to say, okay, I will be there. And similarly, you know, the Mr. Sanjeev Shia, Kritika called me yesterday and she said that I'm not getting I need another speaker. Or Mr. Mukherjee, please help me. I said, don't worry. See, Mr. Shia was an entrepreneur, then he was an enterprise, then he is a mentor. Now he is a thinker. So I have to break his thought and to bring it here. And he immediately consented. And I think in the night, about 9 o'clock or about something, he gave a confirmation to it. Right?
Very excellent co-chair we have.
Yes, very excellent. Right. Now, coming to the speech of the speaker, like Lieutenant General, Mr. Co-Chair said, the skilling in India is a very important. Yes, indeed, it's an important. The government is working, and I think the PhD Chamber of Commerce is committed to it. On behalf of my president, Mr. Sanjay Agrawal, I'm also saying that in every seminars, we do commit, and we say that whatever the help is required from the chamber, we are available for that. Right? And the 5G, as you said, absolutely rightly, the 5G is a collaborative effort. The implementation of the 5G requires a collaborative effort. Mr. Shia said the ICT is a very important. It has put the whole country together. Yes, it has put the whole country together. And especially that India has become the biggest example before the world, the use of the technology, the ICT technology, for a social benefit, which has not ever happened earlier. Right? Mr. Rao said in his address, the innovative ways are required so that we can bring back these 40 crore people, those who have lost the job. This, sir, I again, with the permission of my president, give you an assurance, PhD Chamber of Commerce is available to the government anytime, anywhere, to help the government to formulate the policy, to take it to the MSME, because the PhD Chamber of Commerce, we have the maximum number of the MSME on our platform as such. So we can go back to them, we can come back to you, and we can really form a wonderful policy and give all the policy benefits to the people so that they can be, these jobs can come back. And with this, I thank to my advertisers, those who have helped to finance this seminar today. I thank to the Dr. Yogesh and his team who has excellently managed to it. And I thank once again from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Thank you very much. A wonderful co-chairman we have. And as our president has always been saying that the PhD Chamber platform must be put for meaningful programs. And I can assure on behalf of my team, to my president, to my mentor, to my chairman, that PhD CCI would certainly play this role. And Rao Saab, let me tell you very honestly, when you were there in the tourism, we were in touch with you because Madhya Pradesh, our chairman, Mr. Pradeep Kamblekar, has also given his regards to you. Both my resident directors, Sanchit Shrivastava and Anirudh Dubey, he has also paid regards, and we will be in touch with you since now you are back in Delhi. And at the same time, we will put entire these things, the minutes and the wish list on PhD CCI. Of course, we will be seeking advice and guidance from Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochhar, our mentor, Mr. Sandeep Agrawal, and Mr. Mukherjee, and we will certainly submit it to you, sir. And with this note, thank you very much once again, Mr. Mukherjee. Please take care of your throat. I can sense that you need to do a lot of gargles now, and this is very important. So with this note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this seminar. I wish once again World Telecommunications Day celebrations to each one of you, and have a great day, whatever balance it is left out. Take care of yourself. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rasa. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and also thank my colleague Kritika, Sachin, and Sanjeev. They have put worked hard for this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.